June 13, 1944. 3:47 a.m. Folkestone, Kent, England. The night is unnaturally quiet. Private First Class James Red Callahan, U.S. Army Coast Artillery Corps, stands on a windswept bluff overlooking the English Channel. His helmet strap bites into his chin as a cold mist rolls in from the sea. Below him, the black water reflects nothing. No moon, no stars, just the low growl of generators and the muted clank of steel as men shift beside their guns. Then the sound comes. Not a bomber. Not a fighter. Something else. A harsh, mechanical buzzing cuts through the darkness, rising and falling like a chainsaw choking on air. Callahan stiffens. Around him, other gunners freeze, heads snapping skyward. "What the hell is that?" someone mutters. The sound grows louder. Faster. Suddenly, a dark shape streaks overhead, low, straight, impossibly fast. It leaves a faint orange glow in its wake, like a cigarette dragged across the night sky. The buzzing cuts out abruptly. 1 second of silence. Then the explosion. The ground bucks beneath their boots. Windows shatter in the town behind them. A distant fireball blooms inland, briefly illuminating church spires and rooftops before collapsing into smoke. Callahan exhales, unaware he's been holding his breath. This is not a raid. This is something new. Within hours, British command gives it a name already whispered by civilians across Kent and Sussex, the Buzz Bomb. Officially, it is the Virgil Tungswaf 1, the V-1, Germany's first operational cruise missile. By dawn, reports flood in. Dozens of these pilotless weapons crossed the channel overnight. Some crashed into fields. Others slammed into rail yards, factories, and homes. There were no warning sirens. No formations to track. No pilots to chase away. And worst of all, no reliable way to stop them. 2 days later, Callahan's unit is reinforced and reorganized under Anti-Aircraft Command, Southern England. The Americans have been rushed in to bolster exhausted British crews. Their weapons, 90mm M1 anti-aircraft guns, radar-directed, power-loaded, are among the most advanced in the Allied arsenal. But none of them were designed for this. On the morning of June 15th, Lieutenant Colonel Harold Whitby, a British AA sector commander, addresses the mixed crews from the back of a lorry. His face is pale, his uniform rumpled from sleepless nights. These weapons, he gestures toward the radar vans and gun pits, were built to kill bombers flying at 200 miles an hour. The V-1 travels at nearly 400, low altitude, straight line, no evasive maneuvers. A pause. And if the engine cuts out before we hit it? He doesn't finish the sentence. Everyone already knows. When a V-1's pulsejet stops, it means the bomb is about to fall, straight down. That evening, Callahan mans the elevation wheel as the radar crew inside a nearby van calibrates the SCR-584 radar, its dish slowly rotating with a steady electric hum. The system is experimental, barely tested under combat conditions. But it can track something the size of a V-1 with frightening precision, if the operators can keep up. At 21:02, the radar operator's voice crackles over the field telephone. Contact bearing 085, range 12 miles, speed Jesus 390 and closing. The gun crew snaps into motion. Shells are rammed into the breech. Motors whine as the gun slews skyward, following invisible instructions fed directly from the radar. Callahan grips the wheel, feeling the machine move beneath his hands, not guided by human eyes but by electronics. Target acquired, the fire control officer barks. Fuse set, stand by. The buzzing returns. This time Callahan sees it clearly. The V-1 skims just above the cloud base, its stubby wings steady, its nose glowing faintly. It looks crude. Almost fragile. And yet it's moving faster than anything he's ever tracked. Fire. The gun erupts. The recoil slams through Callahan's arms and spine. A barrage of shells bursts ahead of the V-1, black puffs blooming uselessly behind it. Too slow, someone shouts. The radar operator adjusts. Calculations update in real time. The gun corrects again, faster now, smoother. Another burst. This time a shell detonates just off the V-1's wing. There's a flash, brief, sharp, and the buzzing stutters. For half a second the flying bomb keeps going. Then the engine cuts out. The V-1 pitches forward and begins to fall. Every man in the pit knows what comes next. Callahan watches, heart hammering, as the weapon drops toward the countryside beyond the ridge. There's no explosion in the air. No comforting fireball. Just impact somewhere out there in the dark. No one cheers. Because shooting it down is only half the battle. And they are about to learn just how deadly gravity can be when paired with German engineering. June 18, 1944. Anti-aircraft gun belt, Southeast England. By the fourth night, the men no longer flinch at the buzzing. That frightens Private Callahan more than the sound ever did. The V-1s arrive in waves now, sometimes 5, sometimes 20 in a single night, each one following an invisible corridor across the channel, guided by crude gyroscopes and a simple fuel cutoff timer. They do not weave. They do not climb. They do not react to tracer fire slicing past their wings. They just come. Inside the radar van, the air is thick with sweat and ozone. Corporal Eddie Morales, a former radio technician from New Jersey, hunches over the glowing scope of the SCR-584, his eyes bloodshot. A pale blip sweeps across the screen, faster than any bomber track he's ever seen. Contact locked, Morales mutters. Jesus, it's moving like a damn freight train. The breakthrough, though no one calls it that yet, is automation. Instead of human gunners estimating lead and elevation, the radar feeds data directly into the M9 gun director, an electromechanical brain of spinning cams and whirring gears. The system calculates where the V1 will be, not where it is now. For the first time since the buzz bombs began, the gunners are no longer reacting. They are anticipating. Gun 1 ready, the fire control officer snaps. Callahan feels the weapon shift on its mount, smooth and precise, tracking something he cannot see yet. Fire at will. The night erupts. Shell after shell climbs into the darkness, bursting in carefully spaced patterns. The barrage is tighter now, disciplined, mathematical. The gunners are no longer spraying the sky. They are fencing with it. A V-1 punches through the flak curtain anyway, its engine screaming. It's lower than before, dangerously. Too damn fast, someone yells. Then Morales shouts from the van, correction applied, tracking stabilized. The gun jerks slightly. A single shell detonates directly in front of the V-1's nose. The explosion tears the wing clean off. This time the bomb doesn't fall straight down. It cartwheels, tumbling end over end, trailing fire, before slamming into an open field miles from the nearest village. The blast rolls across the countryside like distant thunder. For a moment, just one, the gun pit is silent. Then someone laughs. Sharp. Almost hysterical. They got one. Clean. Word spreads quickly. Within days, Allied commanders redeploy guns closer to the coast, tightening the defensive belt. Barrage balloons are repositioned. Fighter patrols are coordinated to catch V-1s that slip through. But it is the radar-guided guns, many of them American-crewed, that begin to tip the balance. Still, the learning curve is brutal. On June 21st, a V-1 is hit too late. Its engine cuts out directly above a residential block in Lewisham, London. The bomb falls vertically, exploding with full force. Dozens are killed. The next morning, Lieutenant Colonel Whitby gathers the crews again. His voice is hoarse. We cannot afford late kills, he says quietly. A V-1 destroyed inland is still a German success. From that day forward, new rules are drilled into every crew. Engage earlier. Engage farther out. Miss fast or kill clean. They begin experimenting with proximity fuses, new American technology that allows a shell to detonate when it comes close to a target, rather than on timed fuse alone. Many gunners don't trust it at first. Callahan does. On June 24th, his gun scores its first confirmed proximity fuse kill. The V-1 never knows what hit it. The shell bursts near its fuselage. The blast snaps the pulsejet free, ripping it from the airframe. The bomb loses thrust instantly and plunges into the sea, sending a white column of water skyward. Callahan watches the splash fade. For the first time since arriving in England, he feels something unfamiliar creep into his chest. Control. But the Germans are watching too. Aerial reconnaissance reveals the tightening gun belt. Soon the V-1s begin arriving higher. Faster. Some are modified for greater speed, sacrificing range for velocity. One night Morales tracks a contact and frowns. Speed 420, he says. That's new. The guns struggle to keep pace. Burst trailed just behind the target, exploding harmlessly in its wake. That thing's outrunning our math, the fire control officer growls. The V-1 streaks inland untouched. An hour later, the explosion shakes London again. The arms race has begun, radar versus rocket, calculation versus velocity. And the gunners know now, this enemy will not adapt emotionally. It will not tire. It will not panic. It will only get faster. Somewhere across the channel, German engineers are already making changes. And the men on the gun line understand that if they fall behind, even for a single night, The sky will rain fire on civilians who will never hear the buzzing until it is too late. July 2, 1944. Dungeness to Dover coastal defense line. Dawn reveals what the night hides. From the chalk cliffs above the channel, Private Callahan can see the full scale of the transformation. Gun pits dot the coastline at regular intervals, their barrels elevated like iron fingers pointing accusingly toward France. Radar vans sit camouflaged beneath netting, cables snaking into the earth. Power generators thrum without pause. This is no longer a stopgap defense. It is a machine built to kill another machine. Callahan's unit has been pushed forward again, closer to the water than ever before. The logic is simple and ruthless. Destroy the V-1s before gravity can do Germany's work for them. Miss over land and civilians die. Miss over sea and the channel swallows the mistake. At 5:18 the first contact appears on Morales' scope. Bearing 092, range 15 miles, speed 410. The numbers come out flat now. Routine. The gun slews automatically, driven by the M9 director. Callahan barely touches the controls. His job has shifted from aiming to trusting the radar, the math, the humming machinery that knows more about the sky than his eyes ever could. The buzzing rises from the horizon. Then the gun fires. The shell detonates almost invisibly, a dull flash against the morning haze. The V-1 shudders midair, then disintegrates, fragments skipping across the water like stones. Splash, someone confirms. Another contact follows minutes later. And then another. By mid-morning, the gun belt is chewing through flying bombs at a rate no one thought possible just weeks earlier. But success brings pressure. London expects protection now. The civilians know the sound. They know that silence after the buzz means death. Newspapers cautiously report improved interception rates. Commanders circulate memos praising radar crews and gun teams. And the Germans respond in kind. On July 4th, Independence Day for the Americans, the V-1s come in heavier than ever. The Luftwaffe launches them at staggered intervals, probing for gaps. Some fly just high enough to complicate fuse timing. Others skim so low their exhaust ripples the sea. Morales wipes sweat from his eyes. Multiple contacts, he calls out. They're stacking them. The gun crews work without pause. Barrels glow faintly. Shell casings pile ankle-deep in the pits. The air reeks of cordite. One V-1 slips through too fast, too low. Callahan sees it clearly now, sunlight glinting off its steel skin. It is not crude anymore. It is terrifying. Engage, the officer shouts. The gun fires. The shell bursts close, too close. The V-1 explodes in the air. For a heartbeat, Callahan feels relief. Then debris rains down. A flaming fragment slams into a nearby balloon cable. Another punches into the water, throwing spray over the pit. A third, smaller but still lethal, vanishes inland. They listen. The distant explosion comes seconds later. The kill is partial. The result is the same. No one speaks. That afternoon, new orders arrive from General Frederick Pyle, head of Anti-Aircraft Command. All guns are to shift fire zones even farther seaward. Radar calibration is to prioritize early tracking over absolute accuracy. Proximity fuses are to be used exclusively. We kill them clean, Whitby tells the crews, or we don't fire at all. It is a cold doctrine. It saves lives. By mid-July, interception rates climb above 70% in some sectors. American gunners, once skeptical of British warnings about pilotless bombs, now lead some of the most efficient batteries along the coast. Callahan barely notices the days passing. His world is sound and numbers now, the whine of servomotors, the snap of commands, the rise and fall of that mechanical howl. But something else has changed. The V-1s are falling faster. Not because they are hit sooner, but because when they are hit, they are obliterated. One night, Morales leans back from the scope, rubbing his neck. Funny thing, he says quietly. First week, I thought nothing could move that fast and still be shot down. Callahan doesn't answer. He's watching the sea where wreckage still floats, smoking. They fall like stones now, Morales continues. Straight out of the sky. That is when Callahan understands. The fear has shifted. It is no longer the gunners who cannot believe how fast the rockets fly. It is the rockets that cannot escape how fast the gunners have learned. July 18, 1944. Anti-aircraft sector C, Thames estuary. The night sky no longer feels infinite. To Private Callahan, it has shrunk into a grid, bearings, ranges, speeds, numbers scrolling across a radar screen and translated instantly into motion by steel and electricity. The romance of aerial combat is gone. What remains is calculation. At 22:41, Corporal Morales tracks a new contact. Single bogey, bearing 104, range 14 miles, speed 430. There is a pause. That's the fastest yet. The gun director hums louder as it compensates. The barrel rises higher than usual. Callahan feels the resistance through the wheel, subtle, insistent. Proximity fuse confirmed, the fire control officer says. Early engagement only. The V-1 appears out of the darkness like a bullet, exhaust flame flickering. It is higher than most now, deliberately so. German engineers have adjusted the launch ramps again, pushing speed and altitude at the cost of accuracy. They are gambling. The gun fires. The shell bursts wide. Adjust, the officer snaps. The second burst is closer. The third perfect. The proximity fuse senses the metal mass rushing past and detonates without touching it. The shockwave shreds the V-1 midair, scattering fragments in a wide arc. No falling bomb. No delayed impact. Just destruction. Callahan exhales. Clean kill, Morales confirms. This is the new standard. Across the defensive belt, similar scenes unfold. Radar-guided fire, proximity fuses, and tightly controlled engagement zones turn the channel approach into a gauntlet. Fighters, Tempests, and Mustangs wait farther inland to intercept any V-1 that survives the guns. The Germans notice. Reconnaissance reports indicate altered launch schedules. Some V-1s are launched at night only. Others in daylight, hoping glare and clutter will confuse radar returns. A few are fitted with makeshift armor around critical components. None of it works for long. On July 24th, the gun belt achieves what once seemed impossible, over 80% interception in several sectors. Londoners begin sleeping through the night again, not because the threat is gone, but because the buzzing so often ends in nothing at all. For the gunners, the pace is relentless. Callahan's hands are blistered. His ears ring constantly. Morales drinks cold tea by the gallon, refusing to leave his scope even when relieved. "We're not shooting planes anymore," Morales says one night. "We're shooting time." Callahan understands. The margin between success and catastrophe is measured in seconds. Engage too early and the shell bursts uselessly. Too late and gravity finishes the job. Then comes the incident that nearly breaks them. July 27th, 1:16. A cluster of V-1s approaches simultaneously, 5 tracks converging, their radar signatures overlapping. Morales struggles to separate them on the scope. "They're riding each other," he shouts. "I can't split the returns." The fire control officer hesitates, just long enough to matter. The guns open up anyway. One V-1 disintegrates cleanly. Another veers off course, spiraling into the sea. The third is hit but not enough. Its engine cuts out directly above the estuary. The falling bomb detonates on impact with the mudflats, sending a shockwave that rocks the gun pits. The blast is contained, but the message is clear. Even now, even with all this technology, one mistake can still cost lives. Whitby visits the site at dawn. He says nothing at first, just studies the scorched earth and twisted metal. Finally, he turns to the crews. "We are winning," he says. "But understand this, we do not dominate the sky. We borrow it one calculation at a time." That night, the procedures are tightened again. Radar operators are paired. Engagement authority is clarified. No overlapping tracks without confirmation. The system becomes sharper, colder, and deadlier. By the end of July, the V-1 has lost its terror. It is still lethal, still destructive, but it is no longer unstoppable. Callahan watches another flying bomb erupt midair, its fragments harmlessly falling into the channel. The buzzing ends without consequence. For the first time since June, there is no explosion afterward. Just the sound of the sea. And the quiet hum of machines that have learned how to think faster than fear. August 8, 1944. Night defensive belt, southeast England. The V-1s are still coming. But now they are coming to die. Private Callahan can tell within seconds whether a night will be heavy or light. The radar van gives it away, not by how many contacts appear but by how quickly they disappear. "Track lost," Morales says calmly. "Splash confirmed." Another blip vanishes. The phrase spreads across the gun line like a mantra. "Splash confirmed." In early June, a single V-1 slipping through would dominate the night. By August, it is an exception. The gun belt has reached a lethal rhythm: radar acquisition, automatic tracking, proximity detonation, confirmation. The process is so refined that new crews are rotated in and trained under fire. Callahan watches a replacement gunner stare in disbelief as a V-1 detonates midair almost the moment it enters engagement range. They fall so fast, the kid says. Callahan nods. They don't slow down, we just catch them sooner. German adjustments grow desperate. Some V-1s are launched at maximum range, their fuel calibrated to cut out earlier, hoping to confuse defensive timing. Others are launched in bad weather, riding cloud cover and rain clutter. It doesn't matter. Radar sees through cloud. Proximity fuses don't care about visibility. The guns fire where the target will be, not where it is. On August 10th, Morales tracks a V-1 moving erratically. That's odd, he mutters. Speed fluctuating. The gun fires anyway. The shell bursts close. The V-1 shatters, and something unexpected tumbles free, splashing into the channel. Later intelligence confirms it. The Germans have begun experimenting with crude countermeasures, weight shifts, altered fuel systems, even reflective materials to confuse radar. None of it works. The SCR-584 keeps tracking. The M9 keeps calculating. The guns keep firing. The psychological shift is complete. Civilians notice it first. Where once every engine cutoff meant terror, now many Londoners pause, counting silently, waiting to see if an explosion follows. Often it doesn't. In the gun pits, the men begin keeping unofficial tallies. Not kills, exactly falls. How many dropped tonight, someone asks. 7, Morales answers. All water. The phrase spreads through the unit, the fall rate, how quickly the V-1s are being knocked out of the sky. On some nights it approaches totality. Then on August 15th something changes. Morales stares at the scope longer than usual. Contacts fewer, he says. Way fewer. The guns remain ready, but the sky stays quiet. One V-1 arrives. Then another. Both are destroyed cleanly. Then nothing. Intelligence confirms the reason within days. Allied ground forces have overrun many of the V-1 launch sites in northern France and Belgium. The flying bomb campaign is collapsing, not because the Germans stopped trying, but because the launch ramps are falling into Allied hands. For the gunners, the realization is strange. They have beaten the weapon. On the final night of heavy activity, Callahan stands beside his gun, listening. No buzzing. Just wind. He looks out over the channel where wreckage still drifts, twisted wings, shattered engines, pieces of a weapon that once promised vengeance. Morales steps out of the radar van, stretching. Hard to believe, he says. Couple months ago, we didn't think we could hit a single one. Callahan thinks of that first night, the panic, the helplessness, the explosion in the dark. They were fast, he says. Too fast. Morales smiles thinly. Not faster than math. The V-1 will not be the last of its kind. Faster weapons are coming. Rockets that fall from space. Missiles that travel beyond sight. But in the summer of 1944, over the coast of England, American and British gunners prove something that will shape the future of warfare. Speed alone is not enough. Because once a weapon can be predicted, once its path can be calculated, it can be killed. And when it is killed early enough, it does not explode in cities. It simply falls.